here in Nashville with the Michigan man, Connor Stalions at On3 Studios. Dude, I'm juiced you're here in the building. This is awesome. Glad to have you here, man. I appreciate you coming.
Appreciate you.
So the doc drops. I want to get right to it. Doc drops. Do you feel like life has changed for you since that came out? Because it told a lot more of your story, I feel like. It provided some context for everything.
Yeah. It's interesting when I was even deciding whether to do a documentary or not. I was like, well, am I going to get blacklisted for doing the documentary? So I was honestly leaning more towards not doing the documentary. And Mav Carter was great, and the production company, Micah Brown, the director, everything was great. But what really kind of convinced me to do it was a couple coaches who I trust throughout NFL, college football, whatever. They told me, I asked them the same question, like, well, will I get blacklisted?
Yeah, this is a good idea. Yeah.
Like, am I crazy for, like, I don't know what to do in this situation. And one of them was like, honestly, you might be blacklisted now, and you have to do this to unblacklist yourself. And that kind of put it in perspective that made more sense. Like, yeah, I mean, how many people at a young age in their career are put in a position where it's like, you're too young to just go get a head job, but your name's out there too much for people to ignore this.
Sure.
And obviously those first few months, well, really, from October 23 all the way through the documentary, it was just like media hit piece after hit piece after hit piece.
Sure. Media's the worst, man. I mean, I can't stand those guys, dude. I'm telling you.
So it's like, what am I going to do, right?
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to talk about it or anything. So, I just kind of, when the opportunity presented itself, it just kind of, it was obviously a risk, I guess. But, everyone's going to feel some way about it or not. But if I didn't do the documentary, then
I was going to say, I feel like your approval rating went up. Yeah, because I think if you felt a certain way about it before, like you mentioned, your opinion probably isn't changing. But if you weren't staunch on either side of the fence, like, I think a lot of people saw that and they were like, dude, this dude's dialed. Like this guy's locked in, dude. Like, I respect the fact that he is as committed to the craft here. Like, did you get kind of that sense now, like post-doc?
Yeah. Now, I only watched the documentary one time. I still have only watched it one time, and it was actually before it came out. It was like when my attorneys and I, watched the original screening that we had, and they'll probably tell you this is probably pretty funny from their perspective. As I'm watching it, I'm taking notes, and after the whole thing, I have 50 bullet points of what I like change, whatever, and I don't think it mattered. What I saw, okay, no, I lied. I watched it the morning it came out to make sure that it was what I saw when I screened it, and I don't think they really changed anything, but I mean, overall, I'm obviously very grateful, and
sure,
there's so many things that go into it. Everyone sees the Netflix. I mean, I did not deal with Netflix at all. It was the production company, so Mav Spring Hill and Uninterrupted. So
got it.
LeBron and Mav. No, LeBron was a little busy, but
or whatever.
Whatever he has going on, but. Mav Carter and Jamal Henderson were the 2 points of contact at Spring Hill. They were great. And then Micah Brown was the director. He's done a bunch of other stuff. He does the Colorado.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Amazon.
All their
Prime
kind of
one.
stuff, yeah.
So he's really good. So I worked more with those 3, and then they basically. The production company sells gets Netflix to buy it before you produce it, right? So it's kind of, I didn't know this.
Gotcha.
I didn't know, are there royalties? How does this work?
Yeah.
So no, there's just one budget, and so they pitch it to, whatever, Amazon,
the people,
Netflix,
the money people,
different companies, and then Netflix bought it, and then we ran with it. I didn't deal with Netflix myself.
Gotcha.
It was. It was an interesting experience.
There was so much in there. Was there anything that you're like, man, I wish that they had included this in the doc? Like, this is important to my story, whether it's in the doc or not. I wish people knew this about Connor Stalions.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is Netflix's audience is not just football diehards. So I think it was like the production company and the director trying to find that fine balance with Netflix on, okay, well, he's not going to sit here and explain to you what a touchdown is.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But I understand why you don't want it to be as in depth as we're trying to make it. Because they produced the documentary, and then it had to be done by, I don't remember, like June maybe.
Okay.
Because they needed like 2 months or something to translate it to all the different languages. Because imagine when you go on Netflix,
okay, yeah,
you have
sense.
to, if you watch, sometimes you watch some movie that you see in your suggested movies, and you can tell it's in a different language and there's voiceover. So there's probably some Connor Stalions in Chinese or something that is talking football.
Yeah, doing numbers internationally. And they're like, man, this guy's awesome. This guy's dialed in, dude. I don't know about Michigan, Ohio State, but this guy cares about his freaking job right now, man.
So there's a lot left out that, I mean, you just can't. You could honestly talk about this for days straight, right?
Yeah, legitimately.
In the story, in the media and everything, it was ever changing every single day. So, there's so many conspiracies and whatever that it takes time to actually talk about real stuff.
Yeah.
So you just can't cover that in an hour and a half.
Sure. So
to a lot of people, sure, it's like, well, we knew 95% of this. But yeah, that's if you like really paid attention. So it is what it is. And that's why on podcasts or whatever, you can get more in depth, and it's not as, well, we're catering to everyone as opposed to who's actually going to listen to people talking real football. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you speak of the conspiracies. Are there any of those that you're like, hey, this is pretty wild, pretty funny, but like actually I just want to address this right now. This is not true. Like, what's the number one conspiracy you hear?
The funniest one to me is how could Connor Stalions afford a $500,000 house and whatever, like what do they say, $10,000-$15,000 worth of tickets on a $55,000 salary? And I laugh because, one, Google is free, and you could look up what a VA loan is, and you could also look up the salary of a captain in the Marine Corps station in San Diego, California. Now, salary aside, salary aside, a VA loan is the biggest benefit for military by far. And maybe I can do a little recruiting pitch to high schoolers out there.
Yeah, please.
Trying to decide whether to go to the military or not. Once you're in the military, and then once you're out forever, you can buy a house for 0% down. As long as you have the W-2 to show proof of income, and you're not going to be able to buy a $5 million house for 0% down, right? But if you have the funds for what would be a down payment, and or you have the W-2 that would cover a monthly payment, 0% down. So, and then if you're a sicko like me, you are willing to have 5 roommates and rent out all the rooms in your house,
sleep in the car,
and sleep in your car and profit off of your own house, then you actually not just cover your house, but you profit from your house too. So, I had some money in the bank account.
Yeah, there we go. We had a little bit of for all the pocket watchers out there. We're good over here. The Stallions estate is good over here. All right, don't worry about that.
And then I saw something too, like, well, his house was paid off. He didn't have $500,000. Well, gee, I don't know if people know how a refinance works, but when you refinance out of any loan, whether it's the VA loan or a conventional loan, when you refinance out of a loan, that means you go from one loan to another.
Sure.
Well, the new loan pays the old loan, and now you pay the new loan, the mortgage. So, I don't even know how people find this stuff, but my original loan on my Ann Arbor house was paid off because I refinanced out of the VA loan into a conventional loan to free up the VA loan. So now I can go get any other house. You can only use a VA loan one at a time. So if I move, So now I'm not living in Ann Arbor. Then and if I go move to wherever I go, then I can get a house for 0% down.
So we got money to go to college football games. Is how we land this plane now to go see these epic
and then
contests.
The whole circle of how could he possibly afford this? Well, I mean, it's not rocket science.
Sure.
You just got to know how to be financially savvy.
100%. I mean, speaking about being financially savvy, if you end up being a head coach in college football, like, hey, we're not even to be financially savvy. We're set. Is being the Michigan head coach still the North Star for you?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a timeline there for you? You're like, hey, by age X.
I'll outweigh anyone.
Anyway, anytime, like
whatever,
whenever it's time.
Whenever it's time.
So, speaking to that, obviously, I say obviously, anything can happen. I mean, we're seeing people jump from podcasting to being head coaches in the NBA, and shout out JJ Redick for that. Is there a path that you would take to where it's like, hey, Connor, you can be the Michigan head coach. However, we need you to be on staff at another Big Ten school for a couple of years.
Well, I mean, if it's not Ohio State or Michigan State, then yeah.
Really? Okay. But if they were like, hey, Connor, you got to come do X, Y, and Z at Ohio State, we're out.
Well, they'd be crazy to do that because I think they would know that if I were actually at Ohio State, we would, I don't know, go 11-0 and then, take a knee when we're down or something late in the game and
just take them down from the inside kind of deal.
No, yeah, obviously Ohio State would never even consider that. So this hypothetical, I'm putting it back to them because,
ball's in your court, Buckeyes.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, I'll answer the phone if they call.
Yeah, that's good. That's a very fair. That's a fair point. But last, I guess, fall it was when everything was going down with Bryce Underwood.
Yep.
Social media went crazy because the word gets out that you're on staff at Bryce Underwood's high school, and then he flips, and then conveniently there's a picture of y'all together at a Michigan tailgate. Like, just walk us through from start to finish that story of you getting on staff at Bryce Underwood's high school.
Yeah, so a couple coaches that I know pretty well that have significant Belleville ties. When our regular season ended at Mumford and we're going to the playoffs and Belleville had just lost their last regular season game, it was like hey, we want you to go in, help with the offense and, get these boys right. So I get there. My first time meeting Bryce was the Sunday after the Michigan State game. And, right away, the first thing I told him was, look, because, obviously it's kind of funny. We're both kind of starstruck because he's like, I just watched your documentary. And I'm like, oh, you're Bryce Underwood. And, so I told him, I said, look, obviously, where I would want you to play. I'm not here to talk about that. Like this, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that I love Michigan and would love to see it at Michigan. I'm here to just help you win, help you grow from a football standpoint and so on. And that first day, I mean, we were there for like 12 hours talking ball.
Wow.
I mean, the guy's obsessed with football. We got along very, very well. We still have a good relationship just because of football.
Yeah.
Like, he would call me every night watching film, like asking me what I think the boundary safety is trying to do on this play and that play. And he'd answer his own question 99% of the time. And just kind of a sounding board for him. But, I mean, his work ethic and his knowledge of football is what obviously, you can't just tell by looking at him. Mm-hmm. You can watch him throw the ball. You can look at him. Oh yeah, I mean he's got the physical tools. He's got everything there on film. What sets him apart, and this is why I think he's so confident when he goes on the Rich Eisen show or whatever, and he doesn't shy away, right? Like anyone in his position or in his camp, like a family member or a friend or a coach or whoever, might kind of hesitate to be like, oh, I don't want to talk about him because the expectation or whatever. Well, clearly, the expectation that doesn't faze him, right? I mean, he's talking about what he expects out of himself, and the reason why he's so confident in himself has to be because of his work ethic and the grind. Like, I'm 100% confident, and I can say this knowing, I was at Schembechler Hall for multiple years, and there's like maybe 2 or 3 other people who are in there as early and as late, as you're in there. Like Coach Moore being one of them, Nick Roselio, shout out to him. He's offensive line GA. I mean, he's a grinder. He's there all the time. Bryce is like that as a player, where, just from talking to him now and from things that I hear, like he's there till 10 p.m. every day now in spring.
Dang, yeah.
Right. And it takes, everyone has a life, right? And I am in agreement with, athletes, what do they expect us to, what do fans expect us to be here 24/7 and not have a life outside of football? Right. I get that. And I'm down for that. I agree with that. I just personally, I'm not like that, right?
Yeah.
And Bryce is the same way. We're like, yes, he has a life outside of football, and he's got everything going on.
He sleeps.
He does sleep.
Some maybe.
Yeah, he traveled to L.A., went to the Clippers-Lakers game. I saw that. But no, he's the type of guy who there is no end to football, right? It's not like practice ends. I'm gonna watch an hour of film and go home. Like, no, I'm gonna stay here till I get tired and can't keep going, or whatever it is, and he's that type of guy where, if he is calling me at 10 p.m. on a daily basis to talk about Ann Arbor Pioneer, I'm pretty confident he'll do the same thing to talk Ohio State or whatever it is. So I can only imagine he's even going to elevate it even more. I would, when I was with him at Belleville, my opinion of him, and forget about the football, was, man, this guy's got like the work ethic of an NFL player like right now. There's not going to be an adjustment. And when he had some questions about Michigan, we really didn't talk about Michigan too much. I mean, because again, he knows what we're going to talk about. We did use Michigan's pre-snap nomenclature for playoffs,
okay.
Formations.
Last little adjustment in the college game, yeah.
But Bryce actually had 5 OCs in 4 years. And that's one thing I told him, just the nature of college football. I'll say this, like the nature when you're at a place like Michigan or whether he went to LSU or Bama or anywhere, if you're at a big-time program, odds are you're not going to have your offensive coordinator for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's honestly actually kind of mind-boggling to me. And I don't mean this in any ill will to anyone.
Of course.
And I'm including Michigan when I say this. I told Bryce, the one thing I did tell Bryce was like, I would not commit somewhere because of a specific staff member or, whatever it is, where odds are that person or that situation is not even going to be there 2 years from now. So it's mind-boggling to me when someone commits so early. The other thing I told him is that I would wait, keep your leverage, right? The second you make something official, you lose your leverage, or at least some of it. And again, we talked football 99% of the time. We didn't talk recruiting. So everyone, what'd you say? What'd you tell Bryce? We really didn't talk much, but about that. But yeah, it's mind-boggling to me when kids commit so early for a school because of a coordinator, especially if it's a big-time program. Like, let's be honest. Chip Lindsey, for example, I mean, you could say this for him. You could say this for Chip Kelly, anyone. Yeah. I mean, you saw it with Chip Kelly now. Yeah. You are either getting fired in 2 years or promoted to a head coach or the NFL in 2 years. There's no in between. A place like Michigan or Ohio State or Bama or Texas, the expectations are so high that it's very difficult to not over or underperform. Like, you're either getting that next job or you didn't meet the expectations. We're moving on.
Yes.
So, that's just one little recruiting ism to me. Just kind of haven't seen the process over and over again of like, this kid committed there because of that and this kid committed there because of that. For me, I can go. I mean, we are at on 3, so we'll talk recruiting.
Let's do it.
If and this is what I would tell a kid who's going through the process is the first 40 years from now, you're not gonna remember. I mean, you'll remember your position coach, but like, he'll be dead. I mean, 40 years from now, you will be,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's possible.
You're going to be closest with your teammates.
Sure.
Right? So I would think the first thing to decide, and this is difficult when multiple people are trying to, it's complex, people are trying to commit at the same time or different times, but like over a 1 year period.
Seats open, sure.
Yep. So it's hard to predict who your teammates in your class are going to be. So, but I do think that's important. And then the only next sure thing would be the current freshmen on that team, because those are going to be your upperclassmen teammates that are like your older brothers that you're going to have a bond with for life. So to me, that's like the first thing, those relationships with the players, not the coaches. And then the second thing is the school itself, right? Do you 40 years from now want to say when your son, hey, Dad, where'd you play football? Oh, son, well, I played at this school, and then I transferred to that school, and then I went to this school, and then I went to that school. Whoa, so what school do we root for? I don't know. Whichever one's good right now. Like
it's a lot of hoodies. It's a lot of hoodies tomorrow on Saturday, man.
Lot. And I'm not knocking the portal.
Sure.
But it's just like if you want to make a decision, when people say I'm making a 40-year decision, well, think 40 years from now, what are you going to care about?
Yeah.
You're not going to care about who your position coach was and who your, whatever. I made an extra $100,000. Like, okay, I understand why that is part of the decision-making process, but that shouldn't be the number one thing, right? So after the teammates in the school, I would then say, yes, then NIL and who's on staff now, because no doubt you don't want to commit somewhere where the coach that's going to be coaching you is not great at developing that position. Because yes, at the end of the day, you're trying to play in the NFL and all that.
100%.
But I just think that it's so difficult, especially early. Like if you're a sophomore or junior in high school, don't rush your commitment, because who knows if they're even going to be there when you are a freshman, let alone a sophomore or junior. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on prioritizing what to care about in your recruitment as a high schooler.
I mean, did Bryce give you a heads up like,
no,
hey, this is about to? No, okay.
Nope.
So what was the conversation?
Elijah Dotson did.
When okay. So
for Elijah.
Okay, gotcha.
Because Elijah told me he was gonna flip to Michigan.
When Bryce did tell you he was going to Michigan, or when you found
Bryce
out the news.
committed after Elijah.
So when you find out, are you like hitting him a text, him a quick call, or like what was that first interaction
I'm sure his phone was completely blown up. But that weekend, so he committed. I don't even remember what day it was, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there. He commits to Michigan, and it's funny. I'm still upset about our loss in the playoffs to Catholic Central, a great program. And their Catholic Central is very elite with weight room and their defense and the front seven. And Belleville, unfortunately, was just behind in that. So it's like, well, it's going to be tough to run the ball. So it of course, as like, the OC or whatever, like I'm still like, man, I should have done this, should have done that. And I'm
replaying it in your head.
I'm sure he feels the same way. But it's funny from like Michigan's perspective. It could have been like a blessing in disguise, because he could not have gone to the Northwestern game that week, that next weekend, had we won, because we would have played at the same time. Now, I don't think he would have committed or not based on if he could have gone to a Michigan Northwestern game. But I thought it was cool for him to be able to commit and then like 2-3 days later go to that game. So yeah, I think I hit his dad up, because I'm sure his phone was getting blown. His dad was a coach on the team at Belleville.
Got it. Okay.
His dad was a running backs coach, so I was pretty close with his dad. So I hit him up like, hey man, if you guys are gonna be around, have any free time, let me know. And so we were at this big tailgate, and a couple of the other coaches on the staff were at Belleville were at the tailgate. And so yeah, they I guess they took a 10-minute, 15-minute detour, said, hey, we got somewhere to be, and they came by, swung by and said hi. And
snap a quick pic, break the internet really quick, and then just see yourself trending.
Yeah.
How many texts did you get after that? Because I think the perception for people that saw that, they were like, all right, if I'm a Michigan fan and I am believing that Connor Stalions brought us home a natty, now he brings us the number one recruit in America, it's like, dog, give this guy the key to the city right now. Like, was your text just going crazy when that all happens?
Yeah. I mean, the picture alone, it's just a funny, well-timed picture of Bryce and me at the tailgate. people are always going to think what they want. It's the same thing with like the conspiracies originally with me and the sign stealing stuff. People just want, a good friend of mine is like, people want a sexy story, but the unfortunate truth is sometimes the truth is not sexy.
Sure,
it's just, it is what it is, right? Like,
sure.
Bryce Underwood is not committing to Michigan because his fifth offensive coordinator behind the scenes was convincing him to commit to Michigan. In fact, I actually had a great relationship with the coach at LSU, Joe Sloan, recruiting him. And in my opinion, I had like a 3-hour conversation with Joe, and I was like, oh, well, I don't think Bryce is going to flip to Michigan. Coach Sloan's pretty awesome. Again, like he did not, and I'll say this, like Coach Sloan is an elite recruiter, elite coach. I mean, he was texting me, after one of our playoff games, like watching the film, like he liked this, he kind of helped me out too. And that just goes to show, like, I don't think Bryce was committing or not committing because of one relationship, right? Like, yes, that one relationship is strong, and his relationship with me was and is strong, just from a coach perspective at Belleville.
Yeah.
But and I told him, I mean, I'm not going to get into detail exactly what he asked and what we talked about, but there's a little bit in me that kind of negative recruited Michigan just from being honest with him and his questions he had, that I'm sure he appreciated the honesty. But, I think, outside of the NIL and the new OC hire and just being close to home and everything that I'm sure went into him actually making his decision, he just fits Michigan, going back to who he is. Coach Moore is one of those few coaches that was there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day without fail. And I'm sure Bryce's relationship with Coach Moore, if anything, and that's the one thing I will say, committing for a head coach makes more sense because there's less turnover than there is for position coordinators. And I just know, I haven't talked to Coach Moore since, but I know that once Bryce and Sharon start talking, and I think Bryce told me, he asked what time can I be here till, and Coach Moore well, as late as you want. You're fingerprinted here. What do you mean? And he's like, well, no, like what time do I have to leave? She's like, no, whenever you get to stay.
Want. Yeah.
And I know that's every college football program probably operates that way, but when the head coach is there, just a grinder. And it's not, and the cool thing, Coach Harbaugh is the same way, Sharon's the same way. It's not like this intimidating, the whole staff stays because the head coach is there and they feel uneasy because I can't leave before the head
Guarding
coach
their
leaves.
desk.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like that, because they're Sharon's just a genuine good dude. Whenever you finish your work, you can leave. You leave, right? And he's just got the same type of mentality that I just go in with, and what Bryce goes in with. That I'm just gonna keep working until I can't.
Until they kick you
tired,
out. Yeah.
Right?
Until the key card doesn't work anymore.
Correct.
I love that, man. I love that.
He fits Michigan well. His work, obviously, he's got the talent, but his work ethic and his knowledge of the game and he's just never satisfied, right? It's very, from that standpoint, very similar to JJ. And JJ will be great in Minnesota. I think Bryce is starting off at a somehow more experienced, level from a work ethic and a knowledge of the game perspective that people don't realize when you just watch the film. He's got that. He people, is he going to start? Is he going to this? Is he going to that? I mean, I don't care who's in the quarterback room. After spending 3 weeks with him, I'm putting all my chips on the table with him. I don't care. I don't care who it's against. I mean, he's that different. So people can predict whatever they want, expectations. I don't do predictions, but he is professional in every sense of the word.
That's great because we also, it's great you don't do predictions because we make a living, thankfully, doing predictions. Sometimes wrong, sometimes right. You kind of just you spin the chamber and see what happens. But you said something interesting about the desire for the public to like have a story to chew on, and everyone loves the headline.
Yep.
Going back to what you mentioned about like deciphering signals, when you think back to like that 2023 season, I think a lot of people will want to say the difference was Connor Stalions. How many games would you say? This is maybe even a poor way to put it, but how many wins would you say you were? Worth is the wrong way to put it, but how many wins is Connor Stalions worth to Michigan in that
Without
season?
talking about this for 5 hours.
Yeah, I love it. We got 5 hours. I don't know how long you go. We got time.
We do have some March Madness games coming.
That's true. Very true. Very true.
So, the signal thing is it started off with teams picking us apart in this cat and mouse signal game, and I would say, first of all, signals itself was like maybe 33% tops of what I did, right? I'm doing breakdowns of the defense, doing formation tendency stuff, doing, prepping meetings for linebackers and all that, doing cut-ups and everything. As far as signals go, I would say maybe 95% of the value in it is protecting your own signals. And the way that you protect on defense, I didn't really work with the offense, right? So with the defense, the way that you protect is kind of, I'll categorize it in one of two different categories. So one, just call your play after they call theirs, right? That's the cat and mouse. Like you want to be the cat and signal second, or signal at the same time as they do. So most of the time, when I was talking to Coach McDonald or Coach Minter, it was, you see like me in his ear. It's kind of like red light, green light. Like, hey, if I'm not talking, that means they haven't called their play. So you're taking a big risk if you call your play because they're going to, get our signal and they're going to call the cover 1 beater, the cover 3 beater, whatever it is. So, because let's not kid ourselves here. Like I would say 95% of teams have 95% of team signals.
Interesting. Okay. So
it's about how you protect, how you decipher, how you employ it. It's more like a red light, green light because we were getting taken advantage of. Ohio State was really abusing us 2018, 2019. Every time we're in man, they're running mesh rail. Every time we're in zone, they're running the ball every time.
With those receivers, and you're like, freak.
Yeah,
we gotta find a way.
You're already at a personnel disadvantage a little bit, and then you add the schematic disadvantage because they happen to know what play you're in every single play. That gets tough. So it was more of a protecting our own, right? And so signaling second helps that. And then the other category, I'm not going to get into crazy detail because signaling is still very relevant.
I was going to ask.
And will be relevant.
Even with the headset technology?
Unless all 22 players have it.
Okay.
Because teams still go up tempo, forcing the defense to signal, and now they can talk to the quarterback and say, hey, they're in cover 4. So it's actually more relevant now than it was before the headset.
Interesting.
If you want it to be as an offensive coordinator.
If you're applying more tempo.
You can't force an offense to signal.
Yeah.
But you can force the defense to signal.
Interesting.
Because if we don't huddle, if I'm an OC and you're a DC and I go up tempo, you have to signal.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So why would I not, and this is what most teams do now, is I'm going to continue going up tempo, continue signaling. I don't care if you get it because I'm going to tell my quarterback what coverage you're in.
We're dialed.
Yeah.
We're picking you apart.
Very. So, you couldn't do that before. But, yes, mostly signal protecting. As far as signal deciphering, maybe like a 1 to 5% impact. It's hard to put a number on it.
Sure.
No, it's not like the DC's waiting for like, hey, tell me what they're doing. It was applicable when I told him what formation it was going to be, which he's going to see anyway, but it just sped up the process of calling the play he's going to call. And then, maybe like 1 play a game tops. Like, hey, they're doing a wide delay screen or whatever. Like, oh, okay. It's funny, like there's a Cade Stover video of him complaining about me having a signal that they never signaled before, which first of all proves the point. Like, if you've never signaled it before, then how do I get it? Well, Ohio State never once changed their signaler, the live signaler, the whole season. Okay. And then when they played us, it was there was one play. I mean, I'm looking at the guy who's been live the whole game. So what am I going to like close my eyes and not look? So I'm looking at him, and he signals the formation, which they never changed the formations. And then he goes, Y, delay. Like, what am I going to do with that information? Keep it to myself? You know, like you just signaled the letter Y and delay of game sign. I think there's a 99.9% chance it's going to be a Y delay screen. So I was yelling it, and we over-defended it. Because it's quiet when you're on defense in the shoe.
Yes.
So we're all yelling Y delay, and they run Y delay, and you know Stroud turns around and the whole line is right there, so he goes and scrambles and gets a few yards. But that's like the one time that game where like the play itself, and they got a first down. He scrambled for a first down on the one play that you're like actually you know exactly what it is. But other than that, they're trying to steal our signals. I mean, I remember in 2021, the first year where Coach McDonald's there and we have good chemistry of that red light, green light game. And he's just waiting. Yeah. And they're waiting. And we're just looking at each other. And we're, in our minds, like, we'll delay games on you, buddy. So you might want to start calling your play. And you could tell that's what got them rattled. Because they were so reliant on knowing your signal that, and Ryan Day is a great coach. I'm not like, this is not a, whatever pitch against him. But at that time in the recent history of the game, 2018, 2019, well, when they're going to be in cover one every play, or they're going to be bringing pressure, whatever it is. I mean, of course, I would become a little bit reliant on that too. Like, yeah, sweet, I know. And now all of a sudden you're getting stalemated with like, call your freaking play, and they're not. So then you just got to call your play. So we're calling our plays at the same exact time. So it pretty much was like a stalemate. And they were definitely more uncomfortable than we were when both teams are signaling at the same time, and you don't like, you might know what play they're going to do, but you don't get it. You don't have that information in time to call your play based on that play. So that's why it's just so blown out of proportion with like how much of an effect it has. Like what made Michigan so good, first and foremost, is like the Marine in me. It starts with Ben Herbert. All right, first of all, it starts with Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, hiring the right people. And that was his biggest strength, is he was very decentralized command, as you would say, in the military, where he was not this like dictator of, I need you to do exactly this exact way, and you to do this exactly this way. His biggest strength was a combination of hiring the right people, getting a good staff, and then being relatively hands-off, providing his commander's intent, providing his guidance, but not being, overarching, over the shoulder, bugging you about exactly how you do everything. And so him empowering Ben Herbert as the strength coach was by far the X factor of Michigan football. I'm pretty sure anyone you talk to, player or coach, would tell you the same thing. I mean, I remember, I don't remember what year this was, but there was a game, it was a bowl game. I was still in the Marine Corps, and the Marine in me, getting off the bus, seeing like wrappers and stuff kind of left around and like just not much attention to detail. And I just remember that like bugging me, being like, well, we wonder why we lose games when we can't even pay attention to detail to throw away our trash, right? And then fast forward to, it took a few years, and rightfully so, because after a full cycle where, for example, in 2021, the seniors had Coach Herbert now for 4 years. So there's not a single player on the team who had not been essentially indoctrinated into this way of how we do things. So 2021 is, I think that was year 3 of Coach Herbert, where you go in the weight room, and you've been in there?
I haven't, no. You
got to. It is, all the block M's are perfectly on the plates. They're all perfectly aligned.
Okay.
If you ever happen to be there during a workout, sometimes they'll go from the field to the weight room, so you have to have your cleats, your shoes, all of that. Anytime you you have your shoes off and your cleats on, or vice versa. Whatever you have off, the left shoe is facing forward, the right shoe is facing back, because it saves space and it's perfectly, and it's always got to be against like a wall or on a line. Very attention to detail. And obviously, as an actual strength staff and the actual strength program, that's the whole other element. But it starts with the attention to detail and everything, the way that Coach Herbert and his staff operates and continues to operate. I know he's gone, but it's still in good hands. It's still the same exact staff, same program, same tree. Justin Tress he's been being groomed for a while. He's great, but it's that everything that how the weight room operates at Michigan. Because think about it too. You don't practice every day. You don't have meetings every day, but you have a workout every day, pretty much
year round. Correct. Whether you're playing ball or not.
So when you talk about habits, right? Because you're a product of your habits, and you say this all the time. Again, more Marine Corps isms or whatever. But the fourth quarter of the Ohio State game, when the bullets are flying, relatively speaking. Now, luckily, so I've had bullets flying. I've talked to some of the guys like Mikey, JJ, whoever, just some of the leaders kind of get this in their mind. Years ago, when you have actual bullets flying, thankfully I've only had them flying in my direction,
which is a good thing. Yeah, right? Good deal.
But like even in training, when there's bullets flying, by you, and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, the guy next to me is 10 degrees off, I'm dead, right?
Yes.
Your mind fogs up, and that's what they call like the fog of war. Is your mind? There's no way to get around it. Like your mind will automatically fog up, whether it's you're dog tired in the fourth quarter of the Ohio State game or you're in literal war, right? And when your mind fogs up, it's impossible to rise to the occasion because you can't think. You always fall back to your habits, right? And again, that's just why is Michigan football so good? The improvement of the daily habits and attention to detail that starts in the weight room. You don't really get that edge anywhere else unless you have something like that where it is that attention to detail. And that's kind of like what makes Nick Saban, what made him so great. I mean, I don't know him personally. I haven't been to a practice, but any video you see from his era, it's like everyone's wearing the same socks. Everyone's wearing the same thing. Shirts tucked in. Very attention to detail. Everyone's touching the line. There's no shortcuts to anything because, again, when the fog of war hits and your mind goes blank, when you're dog tired in the fourth quarter of the national championship, you're going to fall back to whatever you do every day. That's why Michigan's so good. And even why on a relatively down year, they still had success because of those habits that are ingrained in the players and have been for years now.
And you talk about, your time at the Naval Academy. I can't help but think about this because the doc did a great job highlighting your story. And I think everyone who watched that, they're like, this dude went to Navy to be a football coach. Like that, to me, still is hard to wrap my mind around. But I'm thinking, like, it's one thing to hear that. For you, you're up at whatever hour you're up at during, the hours of the Naval Academy doing calisthenics. Was there ever a point where you're like, man, I probably could have done this another way? Like, I probably didn't have to join the military to go be a head coach at Michigan. That ever crossed your mind in those moments?
Good. In high school, I played basketball and I played football up until my junior year. We won the state championship. So I was like, well, I don't want to play. I want to coach. I always knew I wanted to coach football since I was a little kid. And I enjoy playing basketball. I was better at playing basketball. I could shoot. And football I enjoyed playing it, but I always knew I wanted to coach. So I started coaching with my dad, middle school football. He was the middle school head coach. Still waiting for the statue for them to build it. I don't think he lost a single game against our rivals in his 12 years of coaching. But so my senior year, I was waitlisted at the Naval Academy, accepted to Michigan. So I'm going to Michigan.
Yeah.
And then I get a phone call 2 months before induction day at the Naval Academy. And they're like, hey, you've been accepted, but we need to know right now so we can let the people behind you know. So I was probably one of the last people to go to the Naval Academy. My GPA there kind of shows it. It was very difficult. I'm sure you it's like Ivy League education, but add the military
with
part
a uniform, with more structure,
and
I can't imagine
football, right? Because I'm student coaching, so you know how it is. you start to care a little bit more about football, especially like this is what I want to do long term.
The whole time, sure.
So what ran through my mind in about 10 seconds on this phone call was, well, Bear Bryant, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, Coach K, Greg Popovich, like all the legends, Dean Smith, everyone. Did I say John Wooden? They all served in the military for like 3 to 5 years. I was like, well, they got to be onto something. They're
right? Not dumb.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I just said, you know what? They're onto something. I'm going to do this. So I did it. And obviously, it's funny. Everyone goes to the Naval Academy or West Point or Air Force Academy to serve their country. Like, obviously. But like that was my additional personal reason. Like, well, yeah, I want this edge in coaching, leadership preparation, whatever.
Sure.
And when I got there, that is when I knew, like, I am going to be exposed to a lot of information. And that's when I just started taking notes, started hard copying it, turned into the Google Docs and then the whole manifesto thing.
Are you still under that every day? Still, it's like, how many times today have you asked?
It's how to run. The funny thing to me, people are like, I want a copy. Just send me a copy. It's not that simple. It's like hundreds of Google Docs. I don't know if you knew this.
Wild.
I don't know if you knew this.
Wild.
A Google Doc can't go over 1,000 pages.
So how many Google Docs are you working with?
I found that out the hard way.
That's nuts.
So I'm like typing and it's not typing. I'm like, what the heck? I Google, working. Why is my Google Docs not working?
How many Google Docs do you have? If you had to ballpark it.
I should probably sign a deal with Opera web browser before I say this and make a little money for the sales that they're about to do real. Off of the millions that are going to watch this. I use Opera web browser, and it's not Google Chrome or whatever. I use Opera web browser. It is elite because on the side I can even send you a little something.
Please.
You can.
Yeah, I'll sign your NDA or whatever.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not going to send you the.
Oh, you're not going to send the manifesto.
A screenshot of how Opera web browser works. So on the side, there's all these different tabs. So the biggest advantage, one of the many advantages from the military in terms of how to run a football program is how to structure a football program. Very chain of command like. In the way that you break things down by threes, or more or less, but give or take, like you can imagine a Marine Corps battalion. There's a battalion. Under the battalion, there's 3 companies. Under each company, there's 3 platoons. Under each platoon, there's 3 squads. Under each squad, there's 3 fire teams. Under each fire team, there's the individuals, fire team leader, and so on. And when I quickly learned how the Marine Corps and the military is structured, I'm like, this is how a football program should be structured. And then you start to see a correlation in everything, literally everything of how the military operates to how a football team operates or should operate. I say should operate because a lot of coaches just don't have the military experience to put 2 and 2 together there, but it goes hand in hand. And so, I'm learning all that. And basically, I'm just collecting all these notes, and on this, so back to this Opera web browser, I just have everything categorized by, player personnel staff and coaching staff and performance staff and so on. I'm not going to get into too many details.
Sure.
But each tab you click on, or each category you click on, all of a sudden there's like 20 tabs. And so Opera web browser, you could close it, and the next time you open it, it has all the tabs exactly where you had them. So like if I, for example, let's just say you told me some great note or idea about nutrition.
Yeah, like before we got on the air when I was talking to you about nutrition, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna write that in the manifest."
Correct.
Write that. Yeah.
So there will be a JD Pickle quote.
PicKell, but pickle works fine too.
JD Pickell quote in the exact location where that note belongs. So
that's wild.
It's like, what is this whole manifesto thing? It's, first of all, I didn't even name it the manifesto. A buddy of mine did.
It's a sick name, though.
Another buddy got frustrated. So now I just got to roll with it.
Yeah, it's good branding.
Oh, it's great branding now. I think I hope we put a new meaning behind the word manifesto. Right? No one's going to think about bombs or whatever, right? And just about how do you win national championships, right?
I hope not. Yeah, geez.
Yeah, so it's basically just multiple. I don't want to say 100. It's more than a dozen. Anywhere between there. Documents, whether it's Google Docs, Google Sheets, whatever, on how to run a football program.
So more than, in theory, 12,000 pages, if we're doing the math there.
Well, not each one is 1,000 pages.
Okay.
Once I knew that you can't have one document to go over 1,000 pages, I said, well, I'm going to break down, instead of just having one document, I'm going to have each category have its own document. So even like, for example, player personnel. Yeah. To me, player personnel is about three things. It's kind of I'm giving you a little preview.
Yeah, give it to us.
There's scouting, identifying who you want. Mm-hmm. There's recruiting, two totally different things, completely different things. You should not have the same person do one that also does the other, because they're two completely different things. Now they should work hand in hand. Mm-hmm. They're still under the same player personnel staff, kind of like they're in the same company, but they're different platoons type of thing. And then there's player transition, whether that be onto the NFL or whatever the case is. And each one of those categories has multiple documents. So like scouting might have I think I have 3 documents for scouting, 3 documents for recruiting, 1 document for player transition.
How many times a day are you adding to just these documents in general? On average, how many times are you
it's kind of it's just ongoing.
Okay.
So again, your nutrition note that
we're trading before here.
Your number one, your contribution to the manifesto. I mean, I'm going to get in the car, pull up. I mean, I could do it right now. Just pull up my Google Doc and just go exactly where it belongs. And let it rock. That is the biggest advantage. It's funny, like, talk about JJ McCarthy, very present person, right? Meditation and everything. And you got me as a whole military structure, like two exact opposites from that standpoint. But we always had and still do have a great relationship, just bouncing ideas off each other on routine and just how to be elite, right? And one thing that we've talked about is he's the best person I've ever met at just being in the present moment. And very you watch any Michael Jordan documentary, very Michael Jordan-like, with he was always in the present moment, never worried about the past, never, concerned about what's to come. And, me, I overthink everything, right? And so, but we realized if you have that, the manifesto, the notes, if you have the ability to capture a note and organize it and put it exactly where you can reference it for later, it helps you be more present. So I can take in any note, and I don't just go to my notes app and just compile thousands and thousands and thousands of notes, where 10 years from now I'm like, wait, what was that one note that I got from JD that he said about nutrition? Like, no, whatever you said, I'm putting it exactly where it files. Imagine I've never worked for USPS, but I imagine with mail, they put it down a tube and it goes in the exact
It's got
neighborhood, right? So it's exactly like that, where you don't trust, you can't trust your own. You can't be present if you don't trust your own system. So at the same token, if someone else were to be like, hey, what's your philosophy on nutrition and strength and conditioning? Well, give me 10 seconds. I'm going to pull up all my notes and all of what I believe in and my philosophy on this. And there's your note is right in there.
You're off for the races.
Oh yeah. So it's really, it sets you apart, and it's funny. People are like, oh, I wouldn't talk about this because you're going to give an edge. Trust me, I've been working on this for a decade. No one's going to be able to catch up to my manifesto.
We're dialed.
We're dialed, and it's growing every day. So I'm not worried about anyone catching up. But it's just like, how do you organize your notes, your thoughts, your everything that is compiled, and actually gain use, right? Because there's so many coaches. If I've learned anything, and I don't say this in a arrogant way or whatever, just is what it is. Most football coaches are not very organized, right? I mean, a lot of people in general aren't organized. And I always say that people are like, oh, do you think you're the smartest guy in the room? Like, no. But I will challenge you that I'm the most organized guy in the room. And I think that's what that's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is knowing stuff. I don't Like I might not know, 60% of football, but what I do know, I know how to organize it and apply it so then it can be coached the right way.
Interesting. I mean, it's crazy because like we're having this conversation about the manifesto and you're talking about Michigan, and like 2023 must have just been a wild year for you, dude. Like, I can't imagine what that was like. Like I always wondered this, like obviously you're instrumental in everything with Michigan leading up to and through the 2023 season. Did you get yourself a ring? Did they hook you up with a natty ring?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Maybe one day.
Okay,
we'll
maybe
see.
one day.
Because the investigation's still going on, so it's like
fair. Okay.
I don't talk to them. They don't talk to me. Right.
Got you.
Once
That's
it's over, who knows?
That makes sense. Yep. That makes sense. Now speaking of 2023. That all happens. Was there ever a part of you when it's all, like the craziness is going on? Is there ever a thought for you like, shoot, maybe I won't go be a college football head coach. Maybe this isn't like the path for me. Did that ever cross your mind in that madness?
Yes and no. In the short term, it was like, those first few days were like, is like the FBI coming to my house? Like, what is going on? This is like the craziest hit piece over like
it was wild,
some
dude.
Signals.
Watching it was crazy.
So to
be you, I can't imagine what it was
like. It
like.
was wild. But after, the first couple months, I was like in a cave, right? I'm like, I'm not going out in public. I'm not doing anything. This is crazy. Every day, noon, 7 p.m., article. And like most of it is like, where you get, like, what is this even coming from? This is like a huge conspiracy theory. Once I went to the Ohio State game. And you see that in the documentary. Yeah. Mike Barrett sees me on the field, storming the field. I'm wearing the ski mask. Like all you can see is my eyes. But so that was funny. I wore the ski mask. I didn't want attention, and it was cold enough that I could have had that excuse of like, I can wear a ski mask.
I'm trying to stay bundled up.
So I'm just trying to go to the game. I'm not trying to get whatever. The Big Ten championship, I'm going. You can't really wear a ski mask in Lucas Oil Stadium.
And I'll set off some
more
alarms.
Suspect.
Yeah.
So I just go, and that was my first time like really being in public, and I thought everyone hated me. Like everyone hated me. And then Michigan fans, hey, can we get a picture with you? I'm like, what? So I thought you guys hated me. And they're like, no, dude, we love you. So that was a relief because at that point in my life, I'm thinking like, I don't even know who to compare it to, but like just gonna be hated forever, right? So that was a relief. And then throughout the rest of the year, then they win the championship and the whole documentary process comes. But as far as like concerned about the long term, am I going to coach again or whatever that case is? Not really, because I go back to the Naval Academy thing. Like I went to the Naval Academy to serve our country, but to coach football, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, in my mind of Michigan, I could have gone to Michigan and probably worked from the bottom as a student assistant, whatever, and tried to work my way up. To me, for Michigan, that was like a 9-year pause. Right now, yes, there were like the last 3 years I was flying back and forth helping out, but I'm at the Naval Academy and then I'm in the Marine Corps, and the whole time I'm like, this is a 9-year wait for the Naval Academy, 5 in the Marine Corps. So when all this was going on, like to me, I'm like, well, I already waited 9 years, so you guys, you picked on the wrong guy if you thought I was just going to go down and be
patient.
Oh, no. Like, yeah, I could wait another 9 years. But no, I'm not going to have to wait 9 years for a coaching job. But in terms of, like, Michigan or whatever, I could wait 30 years. I don't care, whatever it is. And maybe it never happens, whatever. I love football, too.
Yeah.
Michigan, right? So, probably end up being, like, an NFL job or something at first. And then depending on what happens with the whole NCAA thing and – maybe get back to the NCAA, whatever.
Sure,
we'll see. But yeah, I'm not in this like panic stage of, oh my God, am I going to coach again? I know my worth, and there's a lot of coaches that have nothing to do with Michigan too that know my worth too. So I'm not too concerned.
And I think the doc only buoyed that too. Like we talked about at the top of this thing. Like I think
hopefully
that probably
it unblacklisted me.
Sure. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, you mentioned you're a college football sicko. Before we let you go, man, I have a national title pick out. I think we did it in like end of January, early February. I was like, I'm going to call my shot right now. We'll say it's Oregon until after spring practice. Does Connor Stalions have a national title pick
for this year?
As of right now for 2025.
Yeah, I told you I don't do predictions.
Yeah.
And obviously
if you had to make
I got to go with my boy Bryce in Michigan. if anyone who's going to lose to Michigan in the Natty, if
yeah,
that's your question.
Let's frame it that way.
I do like Oregon. Dan Lanning's very elite.
You got Texas in there.
Texas is Sark's good. I hate to just be like Oregon, Texas, or Georgia.
Ohio State's the betting
like,
favorite.
That's kind of in this again. Like as much as I don't like Ohio State, this is not like a anti-Ohio State.
Of course,
propaganda.
of course.
They are losing a lot though.
A lot of production loss. A lot of production loss. There's no way around that.
There's uncertainty at quarterback. You could say the same thing. There's uncertainty at Michigan, but like
I think Sain's a baller, dude.
Yeah, but
I think Sain's gonna be nice.
Say, like having 3 quarterbacks is right. Like
that's true.
One good quarterback.
That's true.
Michigan loses Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, but they still have elite defensive line play. It's not going to be, both Mason and Kenneth are going to be first round, probably first 15, 20 picks.
Yeah.
So it's hard to replace that. But with Rayshon Benny, I know they got Damon Payne in there. And then on the edge, I know Josiah's elite, and that's hard to replace. But Derek Moore, TJ Guy, the defense is not going to take a dip if you just look at what they're losing and look at they're once the draft is over, they had 2 defensive guys picked in the first round, or probably 3 with Will. Well, if you look at it like that, and don't even acknowledge who's still on the team and who actually played.
Sure.
So, Michigan, Ohio State, it's going to be interesting. I will make a prediction that this will be the first year where they play each other more than once.
Wow. Okay, I like that. That a lot.
Because obviously they play Week 12. Unless Oregon, it's going to be Michigan, Oregon, and Ohio State. Okay. You have Penn State, like they're a dark horse, and I know they've been playing well the last few years. But like longevity, you would imagine Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon.
Yeah.
There's going to be a year. I'm just banking, and this is going to be the year that Michigan, Ohio State play back-to-back weeks, and if not, they'll meet in the playoffs.
I like that a lot. I can think it could definitely happen, bro. I like it a lot. That's going to be a fun one, man. So
could you imagine, like, potential Michigan State Elite Eight? Could you imagine Michigan, Ohio State in a semifinal or, God forbid, a national championship game?
Dude, it would break viewership records, dude. That would be, just for college football, that in itself would be electricity. Or especially if it's like the game this year in Ann Arbor, and then you play the other game in Columbus for the playoff game. Like, dude, home action in the same year.
It's kind of like, I'm not, because hopefully I'm with an NFL team in the next few years, but I don't really like have NFL allegiance.
Sure.
But like growing up, you see the Steelers and Ravens play each other all the time. It seems like 4 times a year, 3 times a year. Obviously the 2 regular season, they always meet in the playoffs. It kind of feels like it could turn into that, where they're yearly playing twice, 3 times sometimes a year.
So we're putting your name in pencil. If we're tying you to it, just pencil, not pen, which is what I've done. I've reserved my right to change my mind after spring. Reserving right to change your mind in pencil. We picking Michigan, or who's your national title pick right now before we get out of here?
The national runner-up, I don't know. This is tough. I like Oregon.
It is just pencil too, which is nice.
Okay, if it's just pencil, I'm gonna go gut feeling, Texas.
Texas Longhorns.
Arch Manning.
That's a good pick.
They just didn't get it done this year, and they're gonna be there. It's kind of like March Madness now. It's pretty cool though. It's good for the sport. As much as people complain that if you just get hot at the right time, right? What you see week 2 is not anything going to be like what you see in the second round of the playoffs. And Texas is just a team that is they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And when you have the quarterback play and you have the athletes that they have, it's a safe bet. So I'll pencil them in.
The myth, the legend, the man, the manifesto, Connor Stalions here in Nashville. Dude, appreciate you spending some time for us, talking some ball. Looking forward to doing it again soon, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.